Hey, what's up, guys? Freddie Kraft here, back on Dirty Mo Overdrive. I'm sure you guys have been expecting this, but we're going to talk a little bit about the Cleetus McFarland announcement yesterday. As you can tell, I have been up all night pulling my hair out over it. I think my gray hairs have doubled since yesterday afternoon. It's just really been torturing me to no end. Listen, guys, it's not that big a deal. I see all your responses worried about my blood pressure and all that. But listen, this whole deal. My rants on Dirty Mo DVC have never really been about Cleetus. They've always kind of been the frustrations with the system. And I feel like the system at times is setting people up to fail. And I don't know that this is a lot different. We see people in the years past. Last year, we talked about this back to last year, before Cleetus was even really around in this sense with, Catherine Legg, where I think it was Phoenix, where they let her, she was approved and she was kind of in the way and she spun out and collected a car, and you're just putting these people in a position where they can't succeed. It's a no-win situation. You had like Catherine last year, Jesse Awuji years ago, Natalie Decker. We talked about Natalie at Daytona. Obviously that became a hot topic. That's a lose-lose situation for Natalie. If she just runs around the back, doesn't have any problems, she's going to get made fun of for running 30th. If she does have a problem like she had and she piles into an accident too late, that looks even worse. So I don't know what a win is in that situation for these people that are coming up that shouldn't be approved, but they're getting approved based on social media following, essentially, or just trying to bring eyes to the sport, which we desperately need, but at what cost? I feel like people are piling. Last year people piled on Chris Wright for getting approved, and they should pull his approval because he crashes every week. Well, you can't be negative against Chris Wright and for Cleetus. He's in the same boat. I get it. The guy's got a load of followers. But it's you're thrusting these people into situations that they're not ready for. And it's not really so much about them. It's about the people that they're racing with. I'm not so overly concerned about the safety concerns, but there is some, especially at places like Daytona and Talladega. But it's more about your season. Like Gio was right behind Cleetus when he crashed at Daytona. If we somehow get collected with him, which we hit him, as he spun, we kind of bumped him out of the way. But if we get collected in that costs us 35 points. We got 35 or 36 points that day. We would have got one if we crashed with Cleetus. That's what he got. So that takes Gio from where I think he's sitting fourth in points right now. That takes him out of the chase. That would take him from fourth to 15th in the chase, or probably 14th, somewhere around there. That's a season-altering move where the points matter. Points matter now more than they have in the last 10 years, probably, because, yes, years past you could make the chase and it was based on playoff points, but there was a much smaller gap from the top to the bottom of the guys that, the regular season champion and the guy that got in the last spot was probably I don't even know, 10, 20-point gap. Now, some maybe 30 points if Larson had a really good year. But now that gap's going to be hundreds of, over 100 points probably, and you're really not going to have a shot to make that up, especially in a truck series where it's not even 10 races. So, that's my biggest concern with that, where you're really putting other people's seasons at risk, especially, if Cleetus runs well at Rockingham and gets approved, he's going to run Daytona. That's the regular season cutoff. So now if something happens there, like happened at Daytona with the truck, it's a high risk versus a low reward for me, where you're asking these people to just go out there and do something they've never done before, and I think Cleetus would be the first to tell you that, at Daytona, he was in over his head when he got there, and he was probably, I think he said, like, I should have checked myself before I wrecked myself. Yeah, like he knew he needed to get out of that situation probably, and he had never been in that situation before. But, I don't know. I completely acknowledge that we need Cleetus McFarland in our sport. The guy's got over 4.5 million followers on YouTube, I think. I just don't know that is it not more beneficial to have him as part of the broadcast team, as part of the broadcast every race or whatever races he wants to go to, versus him being out there riding around, not doing well? I mean, he's not going to go to Rockingham and run well, I don't think. I would be surprised if he runs better than the mid-20s. So what's more beneficial, like having him on there talking to our fans, relating directly to them, versus just, oh, Cleetus is on the racetrack. Look at him; he's a lap down or 2 laps down. He's trying to battle back from that. I don't know. It's just I see people say this gives the everyday man hope. This gives anybody, if like, I'm just like Cleetus, and I go, well, you're not just like Cleetus. Cleetus has 4.5 million followers. They're not just going to go approve Joe Schmo because he wants to go race. It's not unfair. It's Cleetus is doing, and the biggest thing I want, like, Cleetus is living out his dream. I don't fault him for taking this ride. I think anybody else would. This is the dream of any race fan that's grown up watching the sport, like, to get it thrust into, I can go race on Saturdays or go race on Sundays. I don't think anybody would turn it down. So I don't fault him for taking the opportunities. If they're going to approve him, he might as well go out there and race. Why wouldn't he? It's going to be great content for him. Going to put a lot of eyes on our sport. It's just, it's a risky scenario. And then, like, I hope it works out. I hope it's great. I hope it's perfect, because then we can open the floodgates. Let's bring all the YouTube followers in. You talk about Cleetus has got 4 million followers, but Mr. Beast, bring his in here. He's got 450. Go. I Show Speed's got over 50 million followers. The Paul brothers, bring them on in. It's just, where does it stop? I don't think those people would be met with the excitement that we're meeting with. Everybody's so excited about Cleetus, but again, it really, it's just, it comes down to the approval process, and I feel like there's a really big disconnect there. I don't know how to fix it. I think it's simply just going to have to be a case-by-case basis. You think about the fact that Brent Cruz runs 6th on Saturday afternoon this week at COTA. He's not approved to race again next week at Vegas because he was born 9 days later. What are we doing when we have a guy that's going to have 6 National Series starts under his belt? We're going to thrust him out there at Rockingham, but Brent Cruz can't race next week because his birthday wasn't early enough. That's my biggest gripe with it. Again, really happy for Cleetus. The guy's got an infectious personality. Seems like a great person to be around. I've never met him. Dale Jr. interview this week was amazing. It's just, I was great. I was glad to hear he's going to get late models, going to continue racing ARCA. This is certainly going to make Rockingham more interesting. I think hopefully the people around him, help him approach Rockingham the right way, because the only thing he can't do there is crash. He doesn't matter where he finishes. He can go out and run dead last, 100 laps down. Don't crash. Don't crash. Don't be in the leader's way. That's really the only thing that he can't do when we get to Rockingham. And I think we're all pulling for him to run well and be great, because we know we need him. But it's just, it's a tricky situation. And again, I hope he does well. But we still have to revisit this approval process, because and it's not just Cleetus. There's a lot of people out there that don't belong out there. And there's a lot of people that aren't allowed to go out there that are much more qualified than the people that don't belong out there. So hopefully we can get that figured out. We will talk about this week. I'm sure Tommy's got opinions for DBC. But this is Freddie Kraft for Dirty Mo Overdrive.